Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty here with Denny Carter on an undetermined day that happens to fall just right after Week 15 ended.
That's right.
You can try to deduce what day it could be. It could be Monday. Could be Tuesday.
Could be Thursday.
It's not the day, Denny, that the Patriots set the NFL back 50 years. And we would not expect this from New England, but they continue to set the league back every week. As I wrote in my column, Mac Jones's natural state of being has become screaming, just like screaming at his teammates, for not lining up in the right spot, screaming at his imposter offensive coordinator for not being able to get the plays in, screaming at himself for just making horrific throws over and over again. And it was against this backdrop that you highlighted one of the takeaways from my column, because the Jacoby Myers lateral heard around the world. Honestly is in the running for like the worst play in NFL history. I feel bad for Jacoby Myers, but throwing the ball directly to Chandler Jones, who was ISO'd one-on-one with Mac Jones, and then melted him into quicksand.
I mean, humiliation is not really the word. It's something much worse than humiliation. Mac Jones went through.
Much deeper than that. And Jacoby Myers, after the game, was like trying to explain himself. So Jacoby Myers talked to the media, which is not easy to do after a mistake like that. Yeah. It was like, he's like, I was just trying to make a play. And you were talking about before the show, like, it's a pretty understandable mindset right now for the Patriots, since like the coaches aren't sending in plays. I mean, almost literally aren't sending in plays, and figuratively are not sending in any big plays. And, clearly should have just gone down and gone to overtime, but instead makes that decision. But you found it, almost understandable, almost justifiable.
Right. Okay. So you have this offense that by design does not gain yards and does not score points. Okay. It's 30% of Mac Jones's attempts since he came back from his injury are at or behind the line of scrimmage. That is an unforgivable, completely absurd offensive strategy. Okay. For anyone. Now I know Mac Jones is limited. I understand that. And I understand that the team doesn't have a crop of great pass catchers. Even so, you cannot have this design, and they do. So what you have is Ramondre Stevenson, breaking a long run, making play like he did several times in that game, honestly, and deciding, I want to be the hero. I want to rescue my inept team, an inept quarterback and offensive coordinator, by just ending this thing now. Let's end it. I'm tossing this thing back to Jacoby, and he's going to make a play. And Jacoby had the same mindset. Well, let's do it. We're all going to be heroes. We're going to save.
Going to be legends.
Team. Yes. We're going to go down as the saviors of this team as we try to make the playoffs. And of course he throws, just a completely horrific pass backward to Mac Jones, and the rest is history. And I think it is probably the worst play in the history of the league. But you can't blame him. I think that there was a frustration that was clear there among both Myers and Stevenson.
I don't know what he thought was going to happen, because I'm pretty sure Mac Jones couldn't have attempted like a forward pass, right? Mm-hmm. He hadn't attempted a forward pass yet in that play. I know you can't do two forward passes on the same play, but I don't think you can go like 30 yards beyond the line of scrimmage and then come back and do. Hard to say what the mindset was, other than let's be legends. Let's actually make a play. You never want to be in let's be legends mode, though.
No. And I mean, I think you see it in other sports too. Teams forcing it, like in basketball, a team, maybe a player forcing long 3-pointers just to get something going. Because the team isn't moving well, is not getting to the basket, is not converting, is not working. All these things. So they get frustrated. Players get frustrated and they try crazy things. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah. I was talking a lot about, you wouldn't understand this, but during the World Cup, I was talking a lot about let's be a legend mode with the U.S. men's national team center backs, like our last line of defense. And like, they both play in America. They play for like America. So they're not like, well, Tim Ream actually plays in England, but anytime our center backs would like start to dribble with the ball out, I'd be like, oh no, he's going into let's be a legend mode. Just like pass the ball. Let's not be legends, Tim Ream. And boy, Jacoby Myers has tried to be a legend. But like you said, someone's got to do something in this offense.
Because nothing was happening, No. And by the way, with Mac Jones is screaming. Now,
the man is hoarse.
It's so much screaming. It's an excessive amount of screaming. Tom Brady, I think, has earned his right to dress down his teammates in public,
Yes.
as he does now every single week.
Every single play, yeah.
And just like, Dan Marino was famous for just belittling and berating anybody who would make a mistake on offense, always deflecting blame, blaming other people. Elway did it to an extent. So once you get to a certain status, you can go ahead and humiliate your teammates in front of a national audience. Mac Jones, in my opinion, isn't there yet. I think he needs to do a little something before he throws a hissy fit every time someone makes a mistake on the field.
One of our viewers points out that it does seem more directed at his offensive coordinator, which also is just like indicative of how far the Patriots have fallen. Because I mean, during the glory years, like if you showed up a Pats coach, like you're inactive the next week,
right?
Like you are inactive. And the stat you said about the like behind the line of scrimmage, that's like extra troubling because they actually have a good offensive line. Like there's good enough blocking for stuff to like develop. And maybe Mac Jones just literally can't make the throws, but like they're not even trying. And it is just broken. It's just their whole offensive operation is broken where Matt Patricia quite literally cannot get the plays in on time. And that seems to be what is fully jokerfied Mac Jones.
That's right. If you can't get the plays in, okay. Now Brock Purdy, okay, the last guy drafted in the draft, third string all season, he comes in, he's able to conduct the offense in a clean, efficient way. And he can't do anything that Mac Jones can't do. I mean, they're similar in the way they operate and throw. So, but yeah, right. It's a total disaster the way that Patricia manages that offense, including getting the plays in. They're always hurrying.
The plays may be bad, but at least get them in. At least get them in.
That's fine.
You talk about the Patriots not trying to gain yards or score points. One team that has been gaining a lot of yards and scoring a lot of points, Denny Carter, is the 13-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Monday, we got the pretty surprising news that Jalen Hurts picked up a shoulder injury in Sunday's win over I'm trying to remember who they played. The Bears.
The Bears.
Chicago Bears. Producer Adam Thomas before the show about how his MVP odds have cratered. Blah, blah, blah. He's not – people are losing. It's a troubling thing. He's going to be out probably at least Christmas Eve against the Dallas Cowboys. And because, they're 13-1. The Cowboys are 10-4. Or what are they? The Cowboys 11-4?
No, 10-4.
10-4, yeah. 14 games. And the Eagles could put the whole thing on ice Sunday or Saturday. So I'm sure they wish Jalen Hurts could actually play. But 13-1, they're not going to risk it. He's almost certainly going to be out. What does devastating for fantasy managers because Jalen Hurts has been he's been printing money. I mean, he's been like early round QB, like a difference making QB.
Right.
And now he's out. What is the fallout for fantasy managers with Jalen Hurts suddenly on the shelf?
Yeah, I mean, in my remaining teams still alive in the playoffs, I do not have Jalen Hurts. If I did, I would have had to call in sick. For this podcast, I wouldn't know anything about being sick. Pat, you're gonna have to find someone else because I'm out. I'm done here. I have been institutionalized, and it's tough. This is tough. I mean, Jalen Hurts. I understand that Josh Jacobs is probably the MVP of fantasy, considering where he was drafted and everything. I get that, but Jalen Hurts is a close second. Okay, and Hurts was drafted in like the 4th round, 12-team leagues. So it's not like he was a late round. It's not like Lamar in 2019 where you can get him in the 10th round. Like you had to invest some draft capital in Hurts, and it still paid off. So yeah. So here's what I think this means. Minshew obviously is not going to rush nearly as much as Hurts.
I'll pick a bone there. I think he's going to pick up the lost carries, lock, stock, and barrel.
Right.
No. So not happening. Gardner Minshew, not a dual threat.
So you have that means Hurts is averaging about 11 rushes per game. That's a lot of pass volume kind of lopped off the top there for Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, of course, when he comes back, probably this week. So you get a little bit of a bump in pass volume. And then, Miles Sanders, if he still has the lead back job after the disaster that was week 15 and
Speaking of screaming, Nick Sirianni spotted screaming at Miles Sanders.
Yeah, Nick Sirianni seemed less than pleased with Sanders. He gets a bump in short yardage work, including, potentially goal line work because Jalen Hurts is third in the entire league in rushes inside the 5-yard line. Like basically when they get close, there's no other option. It's just, hey, Jalen's going to run this one in. Like that's what we're going to do.
He has 13 rushing touchdowns,
and everybody knows it, and they still can't stop it. So I do think that it's probably good for Miles Sanders, and I think the increase in pass volume possibly could offset, the efficiency difference between a Hurts and a Minshew.
That might make sense. Another wild card is Dallas Goedert is expected to return from injured reserve on Christmas Eve against the Dallas Cowboys. So even if there is some increased passing volume, which there probably will be, unless they like totally park the bus, go really slow, go like really run heavy on the ground, which they are capable of doing. They did last year, where it wasn't just Jalen Hurts carries. They had far, far more running back carries last year. Maybe they can dust off that offense, but we probably will see a slight uptick in passing volume. But yeah, it's going to be complicated with Dallas Goedert coming back.
Yeah, I'm not downgrading A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith too much here. I mean, a little bit, of course, but not. It's really we talked about it a few weeks ago on the show. The for as good as the rushing quarterback is in fantasy, and it's like a cheat. They're like cheat codes, especially Hurts. They also are bad for pass catchers, and we see this in a lot of ways. And Smith and A.J. Brown have gotten by just fine, because Jalen Hurts has been so good. But Hurts rushing 11, 12 times a game is significant.
Yeah, and it was creating frustratingly few ceiling weeks for A.J. Brown. He has rectified that in the past 3 weeks, where even his bad game was 4 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. He's had 2 games of at least 8 catches for 119 yards, 181 yards against the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
It's weird. I think A.J. Brown's floor goes higher, but the ceiling does come down. I think the receptions floor is maybe a little higher, but I don't think we're going to – those big plays that he kind of makes in concert with Jalen Hurts. But, yeah, you don't have to panic about – because Gardner Minshew is a perfectly good backup. We basically don't have to panic about the PPR capabilities of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith with Jalen Hurts on the shelf.
That's right.
And, yeah, Miles Sanders, if I can barely even speak to Miles Sanders.
I mean,
after what happened,
he did take to Twitter to remind everybody that he hates fantasy. He does not care about fantasy.
He does not. I mean, and he shouldn't. But I wish he cared a little.
Well, he told us this offseason, don't draft me in fantasy, and I listened per the analytics. It didn't. He
was very candid.
Didn't work out for me.
Yeah. Man, I wonder if he's been plotting this all year. If he actually knew when the fantasy playoffs were.
Miles Sanders has the most disdain for fantasy. He had no idea.
Producer Adam points out, by the way, Dallas Goedert had a huge game with Gardner Minshew last year. 6 catches for 105 yards and two tutters. By the way, we apparently have a reviewer who does not like our use of tutter and tutty, really? Not realizing that's ironic.
Oh, no. That's unfortunate. This person is not logged on enough.
No, not logged on enough. 2 touchdowns, as they are known, apparently.
2 scoring plays.
2 scores for Dallas Goedert last year against, with Mr. Gardner Minshew under center. Denny, Tyler Allgeier, you wanted to talk about him. He was apparently going to be the lead before Jalen Hurts got hurt.
Right.
You wanted to talk about Tyler Allgeier, who 139 yards rushing. It was his first 100-yard game of his NFL career.
Yeah.
This was in a start where Desmond Ridder looked not ready for primetime, to put it mildly. So then maybe actually something to build on for Tyler Allgeier. Caleb Huntley suffered an ankle injury during this game. It wasn't a huge part of the committee, but that's 4 to 5 weekly carries that probably just became available. What can we tell the folks about Tyler Allgeier for the final 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs?
Just as an aside, your pass game is down quite bad when Drake London has 70% of the receiving yards for your team, and he's barely startable. He was barely startable against the Saints. Yes, that's tough. But yeah, Caleb Huntley is done for the season with an ankle injury, and I know you say, "Wait, who?" Caleb, no one's starting Caleb Huntley, and that's true. That's true. No one is. But Caleb Huntley was taking, quite a few carries, especially early down carries, away from Allgeier and Cordarrelle Patterson. And what we've needed and what we haven't gotten this whole season is a concentration, a tightening up of the distribution in the backfield of Atlanta. If we could just get that, which now we have, we might be onto something with Allgeier and Cordarrelle Patterson. Huntley out of the picture is big. Now, just for touchdown purposes, it's big. Coming into week 15, Huntley and Allgeier both had 8 rushing attempts inside the 10-yard line. Patterson had 9, and Marcus Mariota had 9. Now, so that's a lot of rushing attempts inside the 10, but it's all spread out. So if we could funnel more of those to Allgeier, I think we're in business. Also, I've said this a few times in my waiver column this year. Allgeier has been fantastic in his peripheral stats and his underlying stats. His usage has not been good, and that's my main complaint here. But you look at rush yards over expected per attempt. You look at yards before contact. Now he's a tough runner who gains more yards, per carry than he should. Okay, that's basically it. And something I was not made aware of until just a few hours ago: Pro Football Focus grades the Falcons' offensive line as the best in the entire NFL in run blocking.
Really?
Yeah. And so we have a team that's now 14% under their expected pass rate for the season. They refuse to pass no matter what. Now we have Allgeier, I think, as a guy who could see 20 touches in a game, even if Patterson remains involved in the backfield. I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I do think the carries floor is coming up probably substantially. The 17 carries against the Saints that were a season high. And you didn't mention the dog. Well, you kind of mentioned the dog levels with Tyler Allgeier. He's been dragging people.
Yes.
He was really doing that against the Saints, where he was dragging tacklers. He has 5 carries of at least 20 plus yards this season, which is 3 more than Alvin Kamara, by the way. Mm-hmm. The back he was opposing, just no explosive plays from Alvin Kamara. And yeah, it's not easy to get explosive plays. When the defense is just camped out on the quarterback, where they just know you're running the ball. They ran the ball 39 times against the Saints. But yeah, their line has been performing well. And yeah, without Huntley, without Mariota, without any semblance of passing viability from Desmond Ridder, I do think the final 3 weeks of the season and the final 2 weeks of the fantasy season, we are going to see. I think 15 carries is probably going to become Tyler Allgeier's floor, and he could actually reach 20 for the first time. Yeah, again, he had more than 15 only one time all year coming into week 15. So
he saw 17. I know Patterson scored a short touchdown. So yeah, I mean, it's that the runway is not clear for Allgeier to see 25 touches and get a bunch of goal line carries, but the nature of this offense makes him appealing. On a normal team that's balanced or whatever, even pass heavy, I'm not nearly as interested. But Allgeier being good is also a bump here for him.
It is. I also think they kind of want to cap Cordero Patterson's touches between 10 and 15 per game, where I don't think Caleb Huntley going out or Marcus Mariota leaving necessarily ups Cordero Patterson's touch floor in the way it is for Allgeier, because it seems like they've determined he can't hold up, and they are correct about that.
Yes, I think so.
He's been very unexplosive since coming back, Cordero Patterson. But Cordero Patterson is not involved in the passing game at all anymore.
Not at all.
He's been off injured reserve for 6 games and has 8 catches in that time span.
Yeah, he's not running many routes either.
Makes absolutely no sense. He's not a gifted receiver, but it's a Derrick Henry type situation. Why would you not be throwing this man, one of the most talented after the catch ball handlers in the entire NFL? Maybe you should give him some screens.
Absolutely
no sense.
I'm looking at the data from week 15 against the Saints, and Allgeier actually led the backfield in pass routes. No, I'm sorry. Whoops. No, Patterson had 19 pass routes on 37 dropbacks, and Allgeier had 12 routes. So, but that's
not a bad number for Allgeier.
That's a fairly even split. Yeah, I mean, if we could get maybe 2 catches a game from Allgeier, that would be nice.
That would be huge too. Now, dismal news. We got some good news with Tyler Allgeier. We like when players are just kind of elevated and do well. The Colts, it's a different situation where Jonathan Taylor has once again injured his ankle. His week 16 status is uncertain, but the Colts season could not be deader or more door-nailed than it is after blowing a 33-0 lead against the Minnesota Vikings. Hard to see Jonathan Taylor being rushed back, if at all this season, but especially for week 16. Zach Moss and Deion Jackson formed a committee in his absence against the Vikings. He was injured on the opening series. So we basically got an entire game's worth of data What say you, Denny, on the Colts now backfield committee?
So first, I want to say that Jeff Saturday is going to be inducted into the Trying Not to Lose Hall of Fame.
They settled for 5. I even tweeted. It was kind of like a ball don't lie tweet. Like at the end of the first half, when they were going for their final score, I said, Jeff, this needs to be 37-0, not 33-0. Like, because he was just so badly wanting these field goals. You could tell, like, he was like terrified, I guess maybe justifiably, of Matt Ryan like committing a red zone turnover. But like, man, you can't take 3 points 5 times and like you're really, really, really tempting fate.
So he said when he got the job, he came out for one of the first things he said was, "Look, folks, I love field goals. I'm not, if we score a touchdown, that's fine, but I'm not focused on touchdown. I want field goals." And people were like, "Oh, he's an anti-analytics guy. He's a tough guy." Tough guys love field goals, and he took a bunch of them. So congratulations. Anyway, back to the backfield. It looks like Zach Moss is the primary back here, lead back. He played 67% of the team's snaps in Taylor's place against the Vikings. He saw 24 carries in one of the worst game plans of all time. While we're running more pass routes than backfield mate Deion Jackson.
But what did he do with those pass routes, though, Denny?
Didn't do anything.
0 catches on 1 target.
I wrote in my waiver column, which will be out tomorrow on NBCSportsEdge.com, that Deion Jackson's probably better.
Remember, you can't say tomorrow.
I meant in the next several days, or
it's live on Tuesday. It could, which could be today. It could
possibly
be today.
The Jackson is better probably than Moss. Probably doesn't matter because Jeff Saturday is the coach and he'll just play whoever he wants to play. It doesn't matter if they're good or not. So I do think Deion Jackson's worth rostering, but looks like Moss is going to be the guy.
Yeah, they're both definitely worth rostering. And Deion Jackson is like more of a 3-down skill set, which is kind of like overstating what Deion Jackson has. But they were willing to use him on all 3 downs earlier this year, once or twice. Probably, even though he ran fewer routes than Zach Moss, probably has a lot more pass catching up. So I could see, it is very often you see things, even though this was an entire game that they basically played, you see like there's a huge difference a lot of times between the way players are deployed versus if something happens mid-game versus when they have an entire week to game plan. And there could be a game plan this week that's like, we got to get Deion Jackson like more targets in the passing game. But pretty clear that Zach Moss will be, because I think when Deion Jackson was getting featured earlier this year, Zach Moss wasn't even on the team yet. He was still on the Buffalo Bills. Safe to assume Zach Moss will have the carries lead, but I wouldn't be shocked if Deion Jackson kind of carved out maybe a PPR-ish type role with 5 or 6 targets. Yeah, sure.
Deion Jackson had 10 catches earlier this year in a game, so he's proven he can do that. He can serve that role. And if he does get all or almost all of the pass catching work, then it really deflates Moss's PPR potential. It would make him more touchdown dependent, obviously.
I think Moss in general probably needs to be treated as like touchdown dependent, but can maybe kind of be like a poor man's Deontay Foreman almost, which, you don't even really want to be like the rich man's Deontay Foreman.
That's tough.
But who are the Colts playing here in week 16, Denny?
Yeah,
they are playing the they're playing the Los Angeles Chargers, who do have a rather poor defense.
So they actually have the easiest running back schedule over the next 2 weeks.
The Chargers at the Giants, and then if you're playing in week 18, the Houston Texans, who also have a horrible run defense.
Yes, they do. But the Giants, low-key, are horrible against the run.
They are. Maybe Zach Moss is going to make himself some money here. He might have a year left on his rookie contract, though. But Denny, Kadarius Toney returned in week 15, but it was 1 target and 5 snaps. They do not have trust in the man. And now Mecole Hardman is coming off injured reserve in week 16 against the Seattle Seahawks, finally returning from his abdomen injury. Just kind of, I think, like, it's so hard to give up the dream with Kadarius Toney because it's like, he's so talented. But clearly, I think they've learned like that we can't, whatever we get from Kadarius Toney is a bonus. I think they're going to see a fairly large Mecole Hardman role. Will it translate to any fantasy value whatsoever with all 32 teams playing?
I still think Hardman's a pretty thin option. He'll be the number 3 pass catcher in the offense. Maybe number 4, but if you throw in McKinnon, because I'm Kelsey, Juju, McKinnon, then Hardman. Hardman does see decent involvement inside the 10, right? So he scored 4 touchdowns in a 4-game span before his abdomen injury put him on IR.
That sounds made up.
Yeah. Look it up, nerd. And most of those were short touchdowns. So he does have that going for him, which is nice. But his route rate was not great during that 4-game stretch. I'm focusing on that 4-game stretch because he did see increased usage as a pass catcher and slightly as a rusher in that span. I think he's a better option than Justin Watson, who's just out there running wind sprints every week.
He is. He's a good sprinter.
And dropping a 50-yard pass from Mahomes against the Texans.
Ooh, I actually had not heard that.
Yeah, pretty bad. So I think he's going to be an improvement over that, but I still think probably Hardman is more of like a 14-team start than a 12-team start.
Yeah, it's hard to see how in a 12-team league you'd want him as your 3rd wide receiver or like your 2nd flex.
That's right.
Maybe if you have like an injury apocalypse. There hasn't been many injuries, knock on wood, the past 2 weeks. You'll want to play Mecole Hardman, but it does seem much more like a 14-team, maybe like a 14-team dynasty league play. Even.
Yeah.
Where I think you'd be hard pressed to want to get Mecole Hardman in there, and we gotta give up the ghost on Kadarius Toney. It's just,
man, I'm so exhausted by the whole thing.
I know he's almost become like an Elon Musk like Twitter type situation. Like enough.
I just don't. I don't. Please, I need to clear that space of my brain for other things.
Yeah, I know. So.
I've thought so much about Kadarius Toney over the past 9 months or whatever it's been. I drafted him so much, Pat, that I cannot anymore.
You asked me to float you alone, actually.
I was hoping you had forgotten.
Yeah, I know. It was after you had a lot of tequila at your mother-in-law's Christmas party.
Are you calling it in now?
Yeah, I am. I'm calling that note in. Denny, I want to ruin you.
Oh, well.
Nevertheless. Denny, the show sheet note here just says Jeff Driskel situation. And it is quite a situation where we needed an even worse Taysom Hill, folks, and we got it. What do we do with it?
Look. First of all, the Jeff Driskel situation is the name of my band.
As it should be.
And okay, after he split routes with Davis Mills right down the middle, 33 not routes, snaps, 33 snaps apiece in week 14. Didn't quite happen in week 15. He played only 29% of the Texans' week 15 snaps against Kansas City. Driskel had 4 carries for 8 yards while completing 2 of his 4 passes for another 8 yards. So you combine those yards, Pat, and you get 16. So you got that.
He took a sack, by the way, so we could actually drive down the net.
Oh my God. Well, I saw that. Did he forget that he could throw it out of bounds?
I actually didn't. It was only a 4-yard sack, apparently. So
no, but he just made a beeline for the sidelines and just ran right out of bounds.
Desmond Ridder did that on the game-ending play for the Falcons.
I'm like, you know that you're not actually a tight end. You can throw it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Well, and by the way, for those folks listening saying, why are you talking about Jeff Driskel?
Yeah, why are we talking about Jeff Driskel?
It's because, first of all, I'm sick. And secondly, Driskel is tight end eligible on Yahoo. So, that's significant.
Yahoo.
Look, I know it didn't work out. I get that. But are we I'm playing Jeff Driskel this week over a guy like Tyler Conklin, over a guy like trying to think here.
Well, are you going to play him over Darren Waller? Let's segue this into Darren Waller.
Yes, I think so. I think I am.
What did we see out of Darren Waller in a return? Not to put too many balls in the air here, because I don't know if you're done talking about Jeff Driskel, but I feel like that's a pretty good line for if you're sick enough to play Jeff Driskel.
First of all, I'll never stop talking about Darren Waller. I mean, shoot, Jeff Driskel. I messed it up. I just pulled out my notes.
You did.
All right, we can edit that out.
No, we can't.
But
sorry.
We've never edited anything out.
No.
But Darren Waller, he returned finally to the Raiders lineup, ran a route on 66% of Derek Carr's dropbacks. That's not very good. Not really what we're looking for. We're looking for something for a tight end one, you really need that to be up near 80% or more. Foster Moreau ran 44% of the routes. Waller had 3 targets. One of those ended up being a touchdown. So, you got by if you played Waller, but just barely. Maybe they're easing him in. We do see this, guys missing extended time.
Not played since week 5.
Yeah, Waller's been out forever. So, maybe that 66% route rate will get up to that 80% mark, but whatever. But really, the issue here is Devontae Adams' domination of the Raiders passing game. This season, Adams has 42% of the team's air yards and 33% of the targets. That's not changing. That he's just a vacuum for air yards and targets, and so it makes it really tough for anyone else to really get by for fantasy, including Mac Hollins, including Hunter Renfrow, who barely played, and including Waller.
Well, you mentioned Mac Hollins and target competition. Mac Hollins reached 8 targets for the 6th time this season against the Patriots, and that was more than returning Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow combined, which is probably a fluke. It probably is kind of like the working them back in type situation. But, they are devoted to Mac Hollins. They just love the man.
Yeah,
so really love the man.
He's their Zay Jones.
He's their new Zay Jones, because remember Zay Jones was the Raiders' Zay Jones before, and they just can't get enough of the man. So you would play Jeff Driskel over Darren Waller, is what you're saying?
I think so. Driskel. Look, Driskel's seeing high value read option red zone touches. That's more than you can get from a Darren Waller who's going to catch 4 passes tops.
He did score a touchdown. It's a pretty good one. But they're playing the man in a game that in a Hall of Fame. Why does this game exist? The Raiders are playing the Steelers at 8:15 p.m. Eastern on Christmas Eve.
But listen, who cares about touchdown? Who cares about results? I'm talking about process. Losers care about results. Oh, he scored a touchdown. Who cares? No one cares.
So some of the viewers are asking about another player we're going to talk about, so we might as well just bring it up now. They're talking about Chig, the man Chig Okonkwo, who is another going to be on the Jeff Driskel line. So first off, just give us the Chig Okonkwo breakdown heading into Week 16, because he just refuses to go away. He is still catching passes. He's become a really, really important part of the Titans offense. He's drawn at least 5 targets 4 straight weeks. He's gone over 30 yards 7 weeks in a row, kind of forcing his way into the tight end 1 conversation. What is your Chig breakdown? And then have a stunning reveal if you will play Chig or Jeff Driskel.
All right, I will save that reveal for just a moment. But he has 14 14 receptions over the past 3 games, and a pretty solid ADOT. He's leading all tight ends in yards per route run over that span.
Wow,
it's a very small sample, but he's being very efficient. He also saw some he lined up in the backfield some this past week. I think actually the past 2 weeks. So it is encouraging usage. I would think that it continues if Treylon Burks comes back this week, but without Burks, Chig Okonkwo is basically their wide receiver 1.
Yes.
And that's saying something for the state of the Titans, I think. But it is good for fantasy. His routes are pretty stable, and this week against the Texans, it's a little tough because no pass catchers really do much against the Texans because everybody just runs it, to their heart's content, and that's what happens. That's what happened the last 2 weeks against the Cowboys and Chiefs. So I would expect that again. But yeah, I'm starting him over Driskel. That's what I'll say.
Okay, good. Thank God. Sanity prevails. We love our late season breakouts. It's really nice to see someone who I had not heard of before the season, and Chig Okonkwo,
for sure,
becoming a fantasy factor. We will be right back after this. Just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football on the PGA and on, I'm going to do this over. 3, 2, 1. Just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football and on the PGA Tour. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Bucks and Cardinals. and our Sunday Night 7 contest. And don't forget, download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today.
I have to say, Pat, real quick, we have a viewer on Twitch who wants me to say I'm going to get chiggy with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't say it.
And listen, I'll never say I'm getting chiggy with it. Okay,
you will never get chiggy with it.
I will never get chiggy. I just want to be clear about that.
Is that because of Conk Daddy brand loyalty?
No. That's your brand.
Who? I thought you came up with Conk Daddy, and then I kind of ran with it.
What? No.
Well, maybe Evan Silva came up with Conk Daddy.
Oh
actually.
My God! I thought it was you.
It might have been an Evan Silva thing. I don't think I came up with Conk Daddy. Now someone's saying, "Oh, Conk Daddy." Oh, maybe we actually should edit that one out. But we're not here to talk about tight ends anymore. We're here to talk about gadget players. Rashid Shaheed, Denny, bookended the Saints week 14 by leading the team in receiving in both week 13 and week 15. He cannot stop scoring 40-yard touchdowns. He scored a 68-yard touchdown against the Falcons on Sunday, delivered from Taysom Hill, of all people. It was the longest Saints play of the entire year. He's 24-year-old undrafted rookie, so he wasn't on anyone's radar. He didn't run a 40 in the run-up to the draft season because he was returning from a torn ACL. He was old, injured, like basically the exact profile you bet against. But he's been making splash plays consistently now for 2 months. He's beginning to compile a little bit. He's definitely probably more of like a dynasty league guy. But is there anything here closing out the 2022 season with Rashid Shaheed?
I think, he's still a boom bust. And I hate to use that term because I think it's overused, but he really does fit that profile because the Saints really don't want to throw it. Okay. Like they want to stay balanced, even run heavy if they can, which they really can't. But, but Shaheed's running all the routes pretty much, and he's still not seeing a lot of targets. If you look at his recent target share, he's four targets against Falcons week before, 4 against the Bucks week before that, 3 against the Niners. But at least, what you have with Shaheed is you have at least a guy who can hit on one long play and deliver for you for fantasy. Whereas, other guys who fit this profile or something close to this profile, the low volume profile, you would need them to explode. You need them to see 10, 12 targets and catch a bunch of them to get there. If you look at Rashid Shaheed's recent yards per target, okay, against the Falcons, 24 yards per target, 19 yards per target the week before, 18 the week before that. So it is all downfield stuff for Rashid Shaheed. And so you know what you're getting into if you're playing him this week.
He sort of feels like he's going to be one of those career gadget guys, but it is something you have to take notice of where like this many splash plays is always notable, obviously. And again, the targets are kind of creeping up. They're still he's in 4 or 5 target territory, but I do think he's worth rostering in Dynasty League. I actually added him in my 14-team Dynasty League a few weeks ago. It's kind of just like a roster filler. It was like a roster spot I wasn't doing anything with, but I think in 100% carryover Dynasty Leagues, Rashid Shaheed should be 100% rostered just to kind of see what happens. Michael Thomas is probably done with the Saints. I mean, Chris Olave is very good, but they don't have their receiver depth beyond Chris Olave is pretty lacking actually heading into next season. So I do think you should be keeping Rashid Shaheed around in Dynasty Leagues.
It's a fun name to say.
It is. Not a fun player to talk about, but you want to talk about apparently is Marquise Goodwin. Tyler Lockett, uncertain for Christmas Eve against the Kansas City Chiefs as he deals with a broken finger. This being the Seahawks, they're of course claiming he might play actually. Pete Carroll's been very, very sunshiny about Tyler Lockett. But Marquise Goodwin been kind of seeing a surprising amount of targets all year long. You think he may be interesting on Christmas Eve?
I think he may be. He's playing. Look, first of all, they're playing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are the second most extreme pass funnel defense in the league. They also happen to be really terrible against the pass. So what else could you ask for a waiver wire option here? I'm fairly excited about Marquise Goodwin. I know I work myself up into a tizzy about these things. But when you look at Lockett's
I
role,
believe it's called a lather.
into a tizzy, into a lather, either or, really, I alternate really between those two. Lockett's absence opens up 32% of Seattle's air yards, 24% of the team's targets. I mean, there are only 10 guys in the whole league who have more air yards than Tyler Lockett. Marquise Goodwin is a speedster, former track star, as the announcers reminded.
Former literal Olympian, as they like to.
Yeah, the announcers love to talk about that. I can tell you, I can confirm that. And he's done okay. He's done pretty well when he gets a good complement of snaps, or routes. Against Carolina in Week 14, Goodwin caught 5 of 6 targets for 95 yards and a touchdown, while running a route on 80% of the team's dropbacks. Against the Chargers in Week 7, he ran 75% of the routes and went for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, the touchdowns are fluky, I get it, but Metcalf definitely will see a bump in usage and targets. I think Goodwin is right there behind him. I also think Goodwin will see almost full-time usage in the slot, because he was already running more than half of his routes from the slot, and Lockett was running about 35% of his routes from the slot. So you take him out. I think they make Goodwin the permanent slot guy. It's a good role to have in a Seattle offense that has basically just stopped trying to establish it. Like they have really, really leaned in to the pass. They're now 5th in pass rate over expected.
Wow. And excuse me, yeah, Marquise Goodwin. I had a thought of Marquise Goodwin that is eluding me. He is quite fast, and yeah, I think he'll sneak into the top 40 for sure at wide receiver, and yeah, he might even sneak into the top 36. It's so much deeper now that bye weeks are over. But Marquise Goodwin, and again, we haven't had many injuries the past 2 weeks, so it's been hard for people to develop on the waiver wire for options to become available. But he is a waiver wire guy who might actually sneak into the top 36 at receiver this week. So
yeah,
he's definitely worth an ad. Dang, it's not a good week for streaming quarterbacks at all. Mike White was probably going to be my top streamer, but now they're basically saying he's not going to play on Thursday night against the Jaguars, which isn't surprising. I mean, the guy was the classic spitting teeth after he got his ribs destroyed in Week 14. I was surprised they acted like he ever had a chance to play in Week 15. Lo and behold, he did not. It seems like they're being more realistic about his Week 15 status, or Week 16. It's so hard to keep these weeks straight. Brock Purdy facing the Washington Commanders. Is he the top streamer for Week 16?
Yeah, probably. I mean, not based on matchup, because it's not a good matchup. Although there have been some injuries in the Washington secondary that have made them a little more vulnerable in recent weeks. Purdy he's surrounded by so many good playmakers, and I know Debo's out, not going to play in this game, but McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, the way that the offense is designed basically for the quarterback not to matter. And I don't, that's not an insult. Well, maybe it is, but it's what I'm saying is, as long as he doesn't make a huge mistake, he is, and so is Jimmy Garoppolo. I call him Jimmy as a close friend. They're nice floor plays. They're nice floor options. So yeah, I think you can stream him. Another guy you might want to look at is oh man, I missed him here.
Well, I'm surprised you're not touting Minshew.
Minshew, I'm sorry. Yes,
you actually are. Okay, so you're touting Minshew. Okay.
Minshew, right. So we are touting,
even though he's going to get broken in half by Micah Parsons.
Well, I trust Nick Sirianni. I trust our Eagles to devise a game plan that
Nick Sirianni actually, man, you gotta. After his introduction to the NFL, where he basically sounded like the neighborhood dad.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant offensive strategist.
He's been really good. And the Eagles are one of the few teams now without Jalen Hurts, who knows, but they really attack other teams' vulnerabilities. And that probably here means attacking the Cowboys on the ground. I mean, Travis Etienne had a really nice game. I think over 100 rushing yards this past week, and that was in a lot of negative script. I know that they tied it up late.
Well, they did not play the Eagles this week. So
no. I said the Eagles attacked their opponents, and the Jags played the Cowboys.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
No, I'm sorry. I was
connecting. Every time I try to got you, I'm always wrong.
I was connecting 12 dots in my head.
I was admittedly confused.
Yeah, that was confusing. The Eagles are playing the Cowboys, folks, and I'm thinking they're gonna run the ball quite a bit here. But yeah, Minshew was not bad last year as the starter, and he has a bunch of really good pass catchers. So what could go wrong?
He's almost in like a Brock Purdy type situation where he's got an excellent supporting cast, a really good coaching staff. And yeah, they're both kind of streamers based more on like they're just like pushing the buttons, like their coordinator tells them to do. Like basically, Kyle Shanahan's like on a walkie-talkie, like telling like Brock Purdy like what PS5 button combinations are. It's XX, L2, triangle, square, and then he's like that does 2 pump fakes, and all of a sudden George Kittle's just wide open over the middle of the field.
God, actually, you're exactly right.
So yeah, it is more about. Especially with Brock Purdy, it's more about the play caller. As we know, Gardner Minshew's got a little of that old-fashioned moxie to him. But Brock Purdy, it's just really all about the play caller and the sporting cast.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, Minshew, it was Taylor Heineke before Taylor Heineke.
He was. And he's still – I think he's better than Taylor Heineke, to be honest.
Oh, I do too.
Heineke has got so much moxie and – so many turnover worthy plays. So many turnover worthy plays.
By the way, I'm actually really glad that Heineke stumbled on his sprint to the end zone. He got his toe caught in the turf and couldn't do what he wanted to do, which was to go head on with Thibodeau at the goal line. I don't think that would have gone well for Heineke.
There was a lot going on in that play where I think he like made the wrong read, and then the process of making the wrong read, he slipped and. Because it seemed like he could have scored, and instead he just like took a helmet to his spine. But it wasn't Thibodeau, like you said. But
could have been worse. Could have been worse, man. Because Heineke, ultra competitive, dogging him guy. He was gonna lower his head and just say, "I'm doing it. Like we're doing this. Come on." And it would have ended up with him out for the season.
Yeah, Heineke's dog levels are basically like he's holding the leashes for like 5 different Rottweilers. And they're just like running toward the goal line. And I mean, that's why so many of his interceptions get dropped because like the Rottweilers are scaring the DBs.
Right. There's so much dog, or possibly the passes are just that wobbly. I don't know.
Maybe they are. Yeah, because he does have a gift for getting interceptions dropped. Denny, another player that you wanted to talk about that. I was kind of joking, but we have to talk about. He was the wide receiver 2 for Week 15. KJ Osborne did so much compiling in the Vikings' shocking comeback over the Minnesota Vikings. Naturally, people have questions about him, but is there any there with KJ Osborne?
Look, it's hard to say after a game like this, where people see a guy like KJ Osborne go off and say, no, that's not good. What you saw was not good. Because 15 targets on he ran 54 routes out of 61 dropbacks for Kirk Cousins. But play volume lifts all boats, as a presidential candidate once said, and I don't think that's true. But the Vikings ran 91.
Thomas Dewey said that, by the way.
That's right. The Vikings ran 91 plays against the Colts. That is a lot of plays. That's more than a normal amount of plays. And so that this sort of thing happens, where you have like a tertiary target in an offense suddenly sees 10, 12, in this case, 15 targets because the team is super pass heavy, because they're chasing points. And like you said, he compiled. But there's no data to indicate that this is part of a long-term or even a short-term trend. In the Vikings offense, it's Justin Jefferson, it's TJ Hawkinson, and then maybe Adam Thielen, and then maybe Osborne.
Yeah, it was just a classic blip. And the 10 games preceding Week 15, in 10 straight games, he had averaged under 9 yards per catch. That's like a startling lack of explosion and just pure role player usage. And yeah, this was like a pop-up in service of a miracle, and it worked. He's good. I mean, he's popped up several times in his career since coming into the league in 2020, but he's a role player who seems destined to remain a role player.
Yeah, I mean, if you can project 100 offensive snaps for the Vikings every week, then Osborne should be pretty good. Yeah,
exactly.
But if they're going to run 65 plays, things are different.
He does now have 11 touchdowns over 31 games the past 2 years. That is an abnormal amount of touchdowns for a role player.
He loves his touchdowns.
Denny, we can't get out of here without talking about Royce Freeman. And I wish it was a joke, but yeah, we actually do need to talk about him. He was the surprise leader of the Texans committee against the Chiefs, out-dueling Dare Ogunbowale and Rex Burkhead.
Sorry.
What do we tell the people, if anything, about Royce Freeman?
The only thing more exciting than Jeff Driskel is the Houston backfield. Obviously with with Dameon Pierce down for the season, Royce Freeman was activated from the practice squad and rushed 11 times for 51 yards against the Chiefs. He caught his lone target for 5 yards, but it was Dare Ogunbowale who led the Houston backfield in both snaps, pass routes, and he also saw 8 carries himself. Rex Burkhead basically didn't play 9 snaps and did not see a carry. So I guess Freeman is a very thin fantasy option who's going to need to score a touchdown. Freeman did see the lone goal line snap and all the short yardage work. So I guess that's your ticket with Royce Freeman, but please don't get too excited.
Yeah, it's just the classic, like, if you've got to add a running back body to your roster, like he gave you a reason to like at least justify like your final roster spot, but he did not give you a reason to like create any expectations. And if you're starting Royce Freeman in week 16, just be under no illusion. You're doing it out of pure unadulterated desperation.
Yeah.
And you cannot have any meaningful expectations especially against the Titans, who are very good against the run and very, very bad against the pass.
Listen, Pat, I don't want to leave the folks here without talking about one kicker.
We got 2 more. Real quick. Tell us real quick about Juwan Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
4 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's up to 7 touchdowns. Seems to have a red zone role.
Yeah. Lots of red zone involvement. I'm going to be a killjoy here and say that he only ran half the routes against the Falcons, which is, part of a trend for him. Again, if touchdowns are important to you for some reason, then go ahead. Get Juwan to be my guest.
Juwan Johnson or Jeff Driskel.
But, I guess maybe no. You know what? I have to stick with my guns here. I'm going Driskel.
I was gonna say I feel like you're not a Driskel believer if you would play Juwan Johnson over him. So I'm glad you said Driskel.
I mean, Johnson has 5 touchdowns on his past 14 catches. It's the nerds are telling me this is not sustainable. So Andy Dalton loves to throw it to him in the red zone, and it makes sense because Juwan Johnson looks like the biggest man in the NFL. But I still think it's a very iffy play because he's not out there a whole lot.
So Denny, we would be remiss if we got out of here without you mentioning your kicker of the week. We also have a viewer though begging that it cannot be Joey Sly. He said no, it cannot be Joey Sly again. So.
Man, I ran bad with Joey Sly this week. I mean, he had two field goals. His third was he was about to kick his third when something happened. Oh, they had a replay. Oh, the Heineke fumble.
That's right. That's right.
So I didn't get my third, and I had guaranteed. I actually had guaranteed 3 Joey Sly field goals. Ah, God, it hurts.
2 is pretty good, but yeah, the third would have been nice.
Yeah, it would have been. So this week, folks, we are playing. Listen, there's an NFL player named Riley Patterson. He kicks for
I do know who he is, unfortunately.
He kicks for the Jags. And no, I did not have to Google Jaguars kicker before I wrote this column. But Patterson is a pretty good option against the Jets. New York is allowing the league's 8th most field goal attempts, largely because the red zone defense has been really good. Jacksonville is a 1.5 point favorite as of today, which could be Monday, could be Tuesday,
could be any day.
And so I think that with the Jaguars offense sort of clicking, I think you can reasonably play Patterson as a streaming option this week.
So everything's on the line in the fantasy semifinals. There's games on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And you're signing up people either for infinite sadness or like instant joy by suggesting a Thursday evening streaming kicker.
Listen, here's my suggestion. If you want to feel alive on Thursday night, you plug in Riley Patterson into your most important league and let it roll, baby. Let it ride.
Get the Christmas party started early on Thursday with Riley Patterson. Outdoor in the Meadowlands, where I'm sure the weather will just be really nice.
Is it? I thought it was in Jacksonville.
No, it's in New York. We're getting some real bad weather, by the way, in the interior of this country later this week.
I heard.
the high is 5 degrees in St. Louis, Missouri on Friday. So
yeah, I will say real quick, if there are high winds in New York for this Thursday night game, we are we're hitting eject on Riley.
Because producer Adam does say the weather is supposed to be bad in New York for what it's worth.
Thank you, producer Adam. All right, we're off Riley Patterson.
We're off Riley. We'll see.
We're off, but you know who we are on? We're on Cade York. Look him up.
Cade York, Cleveland Browns. Also, I mean, I'm sure I had to do this says the over under for Browns Saints is 32 and a half. What?
No way.
I mean, it's outdoor in Cleveland on Christmas Eve, where I'm sure the weather will be worse than anywhere else in this great country. But my God, Denny, give us a kicker in a game with a total over 40 when we reconvene for the preview podcast.
I'm going to have the interns find some more kickers to.
Yeah, the interns need to find more kickers. The interns need to tell us to end this show. We've talked long enough about our Week 16 waiver wire options and our Week 15 fallout. By the time you're listening to this, Denny's waiver wire article should be live. If you are still alive and trying to advance in the fantasy semifinals, my early rankings will be live on Tuesday afternoon. We'll be podcasting in with Mr. Kyle Dvorchak and Lawrence Jackson, where we will discuss the week's toughest rankings. For Denny Carter, I am Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back later.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.